Okay, Pilar, you're on live on Hab Oh Plays.
Hi, thanks for having me. Can you hear me
I can hear you okay, but chat, can you hear her? Is audio okay? Is audio good? Let me know. You
okay?
can? Awesome.
Well,
Awesome.
here.
All right. Well, we are here with the multi-talented and lovely Miss Pilar Newton-Katz. Pilar, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling great. I'm surprised I have a voice left because I've been came from like 4 solid days of teaching, and it's been pretty amazing to teach animation. But it takes a lot out of your voice. But I'm so happy to be here, spreading the love.
That's
And I'm
one.
over winter, but who
Yeah,
isn't?
me too. I'm like, no more days of snow, please. Thank you.
I know. I was talking to somebody that like maybe we should like move Christmas into February so that we'll get the snow. We'll have like, the white Christmas. No, just kidding.
Oh no, I don't know. It might work. You never know.
But
uh,
hope you're feeling great too.
yeah, I am. I am. I am. I actually was just talking to Olga the other day.
Oh, Olga's my girl. It's cool.
Yeah, and she mentioned. I know I wanted to talk about this later, but I was actually really curious about it because we haven't spoken in a while. She told me that you were working on a book.
Yeah, I just did a graphic novel, and what's really cool is that because I was looking at like your questions. I'm not gonna spoil it, but is a big like working on my graphic novel is basically got me through the pandemic. That was like sort of my pandemic project and my life's love. And comics are my first love.
Hmm.
So I'm working on doing a reissue with bonus material, and I'm really really excited.
That's amazing. So I want to go back a little further. Where did this all start for you? You're from New York, correct?
Yeah, I'm from Flatbush, Brooklyn.
Hey, that's what we like, representation of New York right in the house.
Hey
Uh,
man.
so where did this all start for you? What school did you attend where you were just like, you know what, this is it. I'm going to take this and try to see what happens.
Well, even going further back, the school that I attended was the School of Saturday Morning Cartoons because I was watching the Smurfs. Oh God, in the '80s, and I just remember watching the Smurfs and saying, I don't know how that is made. I don't know how they did that, but I want to do that,
Hmm.
and just made it just like a priority. And the great thing about it is like my parents like saw how it's just really seems to have a love of drawing. And so my mom was like, let's sign her up for art lessons with a professional artist. So, like, the age of 7.5 to 8, like, I was, for the next few years, I was going to Soho to take art lessons with a professional artist every week. And then, so that was really amazing. So I was learning like shading and anatomy and composition, like I was 7.5 years old. Then I went on to go to LaGuardia High School Performing Arts and Music and Art. So like, dang school. And I mean, I learned so much. Just such an amazing school. I did undergrad at Rhode Island School of Design, and they prepare you to be an animator, but not just an animator to work in a studio, but they teach you how to be an independent animator. I really appreciated that and made some lifelong friendships at both schools, and I just recently got my MFA at the School of Visual Arts. So
Check
uh,
you out.
yeah, I graduated, and we had the like official graduation ceremony in May, but like part of the semester is in summer. But I just remember like graduating like with Zoom, and I
Hmm.
was like, well, I'm supposed to be standing on stage with John Waters at I don't know, Radio City Music Hall right now with my mom in the audience like dabbing her eyes and stuff, and I was like, but you know what? Wait, I can't complain. At least I was able to finish. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations for that.
thank you.
Definitely. So I wanna move over to talking about your career in the industry, specifically with Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and MTV. What was that like for you working in an industry where, even though it's been around for a while, it was still kind of taking its baby steps?
I kind of feel like I came up like during those, as a friend of mine called it, and I quote, those halcyon days of 90s, mid 90s, like early to mid 90s television animation. I came up during a time of like Rugrats were on TV and Kids Next Door were about to be on. My first gig was a Courage the Cowardly Dog. I was a storyboard artist and also a prop designer on that show. And I mean, there was just like so much going on. There was so much production going on both coasts.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like no shortage of like creative driven animation happening. Like, and the thing is, that's the case now too, but like things were being tried out. Things were still being done traditionally. When I went over on Daria, I was a layout artist on Daria, and this was like I was there on the first season that they colored digitally.
Wow.
Year before me, they were still painting on cells.
And what year was that?
That was when I went over to Daria. I was like 99.
Wow.
And but it was amazing. So I'm kind of like in this like weird crossroad where I'm an old school animator, but I kind of am at that sort of like that fault line where I came up traditionally where everything was done on paper and film, and that's how I was trained classically. But then everything was starting to transition over to computers.
Yeah.
So I quickly learned that as well, like digital. Well, traditionally, I don't know how to do that 3D stuff with like the Pixar style, but I know how to do the drawing digitally. But I was sort of in that like crossroads there.
Yeah. That's cool. So what was that transition like? Because that must have been very jarring to be in a 2D traditional environment and then going to just computer animation and just using all those digital tools.
Well, I just remember being terrified and like, it just became, I had friends that were like kind of getting less and less work. And
oh, wow.
But what was really crazy is, and this might sound like I'm deviating, but I'm not. It has something to do with your question. When I was on Daria, I marched up to the 32nd floor over at 1515 Broadway, the Viacom building, and that was Nickelodeon Creative Resources. I said, "Are you guys, hiring children's book illustrators? You outsourcing work?" And the lady at the desk said, "Well, actually, we are. We're testing for Rocket Power. Do you know that show?" And I was like, "Do I know it? I'm obsessed with that." So she handed me a test. Everything was on paper. And the art director emailed me and says, I said, "How well do you know Photoshop?" I said, "Oh, yeah, pretty good at it." And said, "Okay, good. Okay, so you're going to do like some drawings, but also like a Photoshop test." And oh, great. And I ran back to like MTV, like I was on my lunch break with Daria. And I grabbed my friend like Kano, and I was like, Kano, I don't know Photoshop, and I have to do this. He goes, "Oh, it's easy. All you do, you scan it, and you have the line layer and the color layer." And I said, "Great, that's it?" He says, "Yeah." And then you show me, and I was like, "This is almost like paint by numbers, just like kind of fill it in." And then I did it, and I got the gig.
Nice.
But I heard them saying like, "Do you know Photoshop?" I was like, "Well, yes." And then I ran. I was like, "Show me, crash course." But then going like a little further over, I was still animating on paper. But then every time I went in to talk to the studio, they were like, "So tell me something. Your animation is good. I like your reel." I said, "Thanks. So do you know Flash?" And that would always be like that pause. And so do you know Flash? So do you know Cinema 4D? That was like Cinema 4D was. It's still a big, but like it was before like Maya came out and everything.
Right.
And, well, I don't. So finally, I said to my mom, because I remember I called my mom one day and I was like, "Oh my God, can you lend me money for my gas bill or something?" And my mom, she's like, "Pilar, I love you and everything, and sure, I'll totally help you out, but I'm not going to keep, give you money for your bill." Like, this is a long time ago, by the way. But what I will do is I'll give you money to further and learn something, sort of add a skill. And I was like, "Wow, I do need to know Flash." And so I like quickly looked, and there was a Flash course at the new school.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom paid for me, like, let me, my mom was like, "Take this course." As I took the course, and that was like the beginning, like about a year and a half later, I already had like a directing gig, directing a commercial for Listerine.
Whoa. Okay.
So it just like no matter like how like at what stage in your life you are, and I won't say how old I was, but no matter what stage you're at, don't ever be afraid to just kind of add something to your wheelhouse, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But
Absolutely
like,
agree with that. Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. That's a actually beautiful sentiment to have, especially in this age where things are changing and evolving so rapidly. You know, so with there's this new thing now in the video games industry where a lot of companies are being kind of not outed, but they're being penalized for this term of crunch, and I've heard it kind of translate to the animation industry as well. When you worked at certain studios, and you obviously don't have to say names, did you ever experience that form of crunch, meaning where it was just these intense deadlines and there was no time to eat or sleep and you couldn't go home? Like, does it happen often with animation?
well, it does happen often, and but I mean, not that I don't. Okay, here's the thing. I basically I am Pilar Tunes. I'm like my company. I haven't worked in house anywhere except for Pilar Tunes since 2008. So I can't speak to anything recently. I've heard tales. I've
Hmm.
heard tales. The tales they tell of places that were sort of like crunch time, and you're getting 16-hour days, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, gee whiz. I remember pulling all nighters. But you know, I kind of feel like I got lucky because, like, for instance, when I was working on Courage the Cowardly Dog, I mean, they were just like so great. Like, there were days where we'd be there until like 9 p.m. But I loved it. I really
Hmm.
loved it, and they like bought us dinner, you know, and it was really cool. I wasn't under like duress in any way, but I
Okay.
do know there are situations you know, where, you know, it's like kind of like that crunch. And
Yeah.
somebody was telling me a story, and again, I don't want to get the names wrong, but like studios like overseas, like in Asia, like Japan and stuff, were like literally making like a few dollars an hour, and you're there like 15. And it's like, imagine like working in a studio in Japan. I mean, that's a dream, right? Like working in a studio making actual anime.
Yeah.
Well, when you're making $5 an hour and you're there for 20 hours a day, I don't know.
It's terrible that I've heard horror stories about the Japanese side of things and the labor conditions over there where they're not making enough at all to even just get a cup of noodles. You know what I mean?
And the thing is that God, if somebody said, "Do you want to come over to Japan and work on something at like Studio Ghibli or something?" I was like, "Yeah, where do I sign up?" You know, and even if they're like, "Well, you'll only be making the equivalent of," I don't know if it's Studio Ghibli, right? By the way, I'm just giving examples,
Yeah.
but they're like,
Right. Right. Right.
"Yeah, very little per hour." I'm like, "I don't care, it's Studio Ghibli. I'll do it." And there are people out there that are like, "Look, I want to get the experience."
Hmm.
And I want to get that experience and further my career, even if it means, you know, I'm not making a lot. And I try to tell my students, you know what, I've never worked a gig where I've gotten like shortchanged
Hmm.
on, oh, just work for this like totally nominal rate. It'll further your career. My career has never gotten furthered by this situation.
Right.
Maybe Studio Ghibli, but I don't know. For the record, I never worked there, but anyway.
Got
No.
you. With Pilar Tunes, right?
Yeah,
When did you decide? Let's talk about the now. So when you transitioned over to Pilar Tunes, when did you decide to say, I want to do this on my own, I want to make my own work, and I want to tell my own stories?
Well, what happened was I kind of formed Pilar Tunes in 2002, but I didn't really kind of do anything with Pilar Tunes until 2008 when I started getting like gigs, like people started like commissioning work to me to do as Pilar Tunes.
Hmm.
So I started doing business at Pilar Tunes in 2008 officially, and I just kind of it all started when I just started getting clients and I started getting repeat clients.
Hmm.
And then little by little, then I started getting word of mouth, but from the repeat clients. And now what's really cool is that I mean I don't even really, I mean, knock on wood, I don't really have to look for work because all the people that work I get are word of mouth, people that seek me out. They're either recommended or have been getting, like, a lot of people have been finding me from my website.
Right. You know, I have to say, um, you, Pilar, are kind of like a, I want to use the word unicorn because I feel like that's kind of weird and people say it in a weird way now, but you're kind of a unicorn in the animation industry and just in general because not only because you're a woman, but because you're a black woman. And even though you do exist and black women do exist in the industry, it's very hard to come by. And I remember the moment that I met you through our mutual friend, I was like, that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, she is stellar. I'm in awe. And the reason why I even go by Hab Tunes is because you went by Pilar Tunes. I was like, that's kind of catchy. I like that. And I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, I want to meet this woman.
Oh, yay! Wait, who did we meet? Was it Lisa Dean? I'm trying to think of
It
who.
was actually, it was Daniil.
How is Danielle? She's my
I
girl.
actually just spoke to her today. She was baking some cookies.
Oh man, I got to give her a shout. Just send her my love.
Yeah, I will, definitely.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah, with animation and with art, what do you find? No, with animation specifically, what do you find the most liberating thing about it?
Yeah, okay, and I actually wrote this down, but I don't know if I have a good answer.
I'm sure your answer will be amazing.
I actually did. I was like, okay, I have those set of questions. I did my homework. Um, okay, so basically, what is liberating, and there's a couple of angles I'm going to tell you about.
Mhm.
Okay, one of the most liberating things about animation is animation doesn't require a lighting crew or a set or even actors if you don't have dialogue. That is,
Mhm.
if you can draw and you have access to software or an app, of which there are many, especially apps on tablet that are free or low cost, sky's the limit. So like you literally like could it's so liberating because you can literally just with an iPad or even like with an app on your phone, you can create a project. So I always tell this story, and I tell this story. I just told this story the other day, and I told this story to a bunch of my students. I said, "Well, professor, like, how do I do this? Like, I'm never going to be able to make a film. I'm never going to be able to get famous. I don't have the best software. I don't have the best computer." I said, "Okay, I got to tell you a story. A friend of mine, Dave Levy, he used to be president of ASIFA. Now he's out on the West Coast doing stuff for Disney and God knows. So he's amazing. Just put out a book. He's an amazing guy. He literally took out his iPhone, and this is when like iPhones first got invented or something, and he had a drawing app where you just draw with your finger,
Mhm.
and he created like a music video,
Wow.
just this thing in his pocket, and then he like then took it and like composited it, but he created it, put a soundtrack on it, and it won awards. It was on TV.
No
Um,
way.
so the sky's the limit. Back in the day when I came up, everything like you have to have access to an animation stand. You have to have access to lighting to shoot the animation. So you have to have good film stock. You have to have a good film camera. You have to have the money to develop a work print, and then you have to hire a sound studio to edit it. Then you have to create a negative and an optical track. You're already up to like a few $1,000s right there. So even in order to create like an animated, like a 3 minute short, you're spending thousands of dollars, and it's beautiful. Film is beautiful. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but now animation is like more accessible. So there are all these awesome like kids that have never visited an animation studio that work in their parents' laundromat, like, and then have dreams, just dreaming of being an animator. And now they can because they have what I didn't have, and that's technology and readily accessible technology.
Mhm.
And I think that's amazing, especially for the young people that are starting out. They like I said, they have what I didn't have, and they could just. I'm like, you have no excuse not to animate.
That's true. It's funny. It's funny that you mention the accessibility because I believe maybe a year and a half ago, when I was teaching before COVID happened, one of my students, he would come in every day and he would fill on his phone. And I was always curious as to what he was doing. He would just come in, he put his little Minecraft hoodie on, and he would just do it. And one day he just came up to me, he showed me, he was like, hey. And then it was this program called Flip a Clip. And he
Yeah,
basically
the
was
students use
drawing
it.
with his finger, and he made these really cool animations. I was like, that's amazing. Like this kid in fifth grade is making animations with his phone.
Yeah,
We're in a golden age. Like,
I'm telling you, it's
yeah.
amazing. That's me. And a lot of my students use Flip a Clip, like just on their own time. I'm like, okay, when you're, so I'll be like, I'm teaching Flash, so when you're in my class, use Flash. But on their own, they use Flip a Clip a lot, and I like the tools, like the brushes. It looks like real pencil. It looks
Mm-hmm.
neat.
Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, it's so amazing. Can
Oh,
you
that's great.
can you yeah? Can you speak to the difference between how you may have viewed the art world working in a major studio versus where you are now as an independent?
Yeah, yeah. Now that's a tough question. So I was gonna try to write it down.
Hmm.
So I decided I was gonna ad lib because but so that's a very good question. So in contrast, working on like the larger productions, like for instance when I was starting out. But by the way, with the caveat, with the disclaimer
Hmm.
that when I came up, it was a long time ago. Like things have changed since then. But
Hmm.
um, when you're viewing the world, you're viewing the world from the point of view of the art. Like you see art, but you're influenced by everyone around you. So you're working in a studio, and I mean, I'd be like on Daria, and somebody would bring in like an amazing art of book, like the art of Cowboy Bebop, or the art of Prince of Egypt, or the art of or look at this amazing graphic novel I just found. It's called Boone, and it's by Jeff Smith, and so I'm influenced by everyone around me, and I discover amazing things by everyone around me because that is my view of art, is by those around me exposing me to it.
Hmm.
Because when I'm working in a studio, I don't have time to go out and find it. It kind of finds me.
Right.
Meanwhile, kind of being like my own entity now. Now I kind of have to go out and get it, especially now that I teach. Because I'm like, well, I need to kind of stay current and see what's out there, animation, art in general, so that I could also tell my students about it. So, um, so just kind of being like my own entity as opposed to kind of being in a studio where you're being influenced by and being getting hacked to stuff by those around you.
Yeah.
Totally different because you kind of have to find it like on your own, which is probably going to kind of dovetail into your next question, especially during COVID. It is kind of hard to go out and see live music and go to a gallery opening or I'm going to go to a bookstore and browse. I mean, stores are kind of opening again, stuff like that, but it kind of became really hard, and I had to get into the habit of well, if I can't find art, I'll research it. There's the internet. I bought a lot of books online, and I also am going to create my own art. I don't know if I answered your question in any way, shape, or form.
No, you're doing fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And speaking of COVID, do you feel like you've been not stifled, and you kind of said this earlier, but do you feel like there's like a somewhat of a block on creativity because we can't go out and experience those things? Do you feel like this has hindered your creative process? And if so, how do you find workarounds for it?
All right, now check this out. When the pandemic like first happened, I was in my really intense home stretch of grad school, and I had no choice. So, just to give you an idea, so I went to the School of Visual Arts, got my Master's of Fine Arts in their visual narrative department, and what's really amazing and I'm answering your question, I promise. What's really amazing about visual narrative is that it's interdisciplinary. You can come in and tell a story, but you have to tell a good story. It's visual narrative, so you're like a writer, but you're an artist and you're an author. I can go in and tell a story using like interpretive dance if I wanted to. Like we have my classmates vary everywhere from virtual reality to like comics. So I said I want to tell a story, and for my thesis, I'm going to do this comic. And so when the pandemic went down, what I was really relieved about was that like our the chair of the department, Nathan Fox, he's amazing. Shout out. He was like, listen, dude. I mean, this pandemic, whoa, it's scary, but like you still have theses. Is that a word? You still have
You
theses to
just made
finish.
it. Yep, it's a word
Yeah,
now.
no. If they're listening, I know I'm in trouble now. But and so pandemic, I know, but still got work to do, and it kept me focused because I really admired that because there were colleges I heard of. I don't know the names of, but there were colleges I heard where they were like, okay, tough. Pandemic, sorry, we're shutting down. Take your credits and do your best to finish up in another school. There actually were literally colleges that did that. But School of Visual Arts like kept me focused. And to answer your question, because I was in school, I was being forced to be focused.
Hmm.
You know, because I was like, it's a pandemic. Why are you making me work? I was like, wait a minute, what else would I be doing? And it just really like my classmates and I really like just on Zoom and on our like WhatsApp thread, you know, are always constantly like, what are you doing? I'm working. What are you doing? I'm working. It's 4 a.m. Okay, you know, and it just kept us focused. And even and for the record, if I wasn't in a if I wasn't in like my master's program, I probably would have been like more time to work on my own stuff. That's because since I've graduated, more time to work on my own stuff. Every ounce of free time I have, uh, I work on my own stuff, and I'm like, this is great, you know.
Hmm.
By the way, another shout out to School of Visual Arts. After I graduated, um, they hit me up and they said, "Hey, we noticed that you got your MFA at School of Visual Arts. How would you like to teach here and teach animation here?" I was like,
Wow.
I was almost like, oh my god, I'm so tired. I can't think about teaching right now. I'm exhausted. I just want to go home and teach. I mean, no, and I just want to go home and sleep for a year. But I was like, oh wait a minute. Um, but this is SBA is totally awesome. First of all, and second of all, I have loans to pay off. But the students there are amazing. You know, just incredible, and you know, and I also teach the City College of New York, and those students are amazing. I have the best students in the world. I totally deviated. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Shout outs to SVA and City College. You know, they are greater now that you're there.
Oh, well, thanks. So I try. You know, I joke and I say it's City College. I said, you know, City College has an animation department, and I'm it. I'm a one woman animation
There
department.
you go.
And you know, I'm starting an animation collective there because they really need it, you know.
Hmm.
And the last couple of years of the CUNY Film Festival, we're talking out of 24 campuses.
Hmm.
We like basically like won all the animation categories. Like we showed up when we were in person. We showed up at the reception. It was like a big posse of us, and the director of the festival was like, "Wow, who the hell are you guys?" It was
Love
like,
it.
"You guys are so devoted." And I was like, "City College," and he was like, "Oh."
Love
It was
it. So my last question before we get to our Q&A, it's a kind of a silly question. If you could pitch an all-star team
like,
of
I was,
animators, are you ready? You ready?
yeah, no, go ahead.
Alive or dead? Who are your top five?
Okay. I like completely. I sat while I did my nightly viewing of Frozen 2. Don't ask.
Hey, I love
And
that movie. Frozen 2 is amazing.
and I've basically watched it about 3 dozen times since the pandemic. It's like comfort viewing. I'm like, first of all, I love the movie. It's a great movie, but I'm like literally watch it over and over again. So tonight, so basically, since it's Black History Month, I was like, I'm taking five Black animators, and
There we
you know,
go.
but so five, uh, with an exception of one who's a woman. So, but majority, but they're all amazing. Okay. But the amazing Sonia Carey. She, you know, her studio's Animation Lounge. She worked on Princess and the Frog. Enough said. She's incredible.
Nice.
Bruce Smith, because Bruce Smith.
Hmm.
Joanna Quinn, because I love her. She did the famous Fred in 1996, and that was in the Ottawa Animation Festival. I believe it won the audience prize that year, but I'm probably going to correct it later. Carol Holiday, she worked on a Goofy movie and Oliver and
Oh
Company.
my God, yes.
Pound Puppies. Enough said. I grew up watching the Pound Puppies.
Same.
I still say, hey, I'm the cooler. You know, I'm window pupperoo. And to round it out, Floyd Norman.
Yes, legendary Floyd Norman.
And I have a Bruce Smith story. He at the Ottawa Festival, and I know I'm not trying to take over your thing. At the Ottawa Festival, so a year before last, he spoke, and I was there at the Ottawa International Animation Festival. I've been going every year for like 30 years now. Um, and I was like, "This is Bruce Smith. He's there to present his new film, Hair Love, that no one's seen yet. It wasn't out and everything." And I'm like obsessed with him because of Proud Family and Baby's Kids
Hmm.
and among everything. And I literally got to the talk to the room. There's like a big kind of like this area that had all these kind of conference rooms, and I got to the area an hour early. I'm like, just because even though you have a ticket to a pass to the Ottawa Animation Festival, events still fill up, you know. So, by the way, if you ever go to the Ottawa Animation Festival, get to everything about 20 minutes early. I recommend 30 minutes early. But anyway,
Wow.
I got hour. Just stand online, talk to your friends. So I got there an hour early. I was the first person there, and I saw like a guy just standing there, like just a guy, like just waiting.
Hmm.
And I was like, I looked over and I was like, that's Bruce Smith, and he's just standing there, like like a normal person. Like he should be in a limousine, sipping champagne, eating gold-plated bagels. Like, but no, he's just standing there, like. So so he was talking. There was a lady like talking to him, like saying, "Oh, nice to meet you. Oh my God, it's so great to meet you." And then I just kind of sidled over when she left. I was like, just kind of pretending. And I did one of these. I was like, "Oh, are you Bruce Smith?" And then, needless to say, I was stalking him for like the last 20 minutes. He said, "Oh yeah," and I said, "I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you probably get this every day, but like you inspire me so much and you're amazing and I can't believe that you're standing in front of me and I'm breathing the same air as you and you're incredible." And I totally geeked out. And he said, "Oh my God, thank you so much." And he gave me like the biggest hug. Actually said this. I said, "I will never bathe again. Thank you so much." And now you think I'm a complete. I said to Bruce Smith, I said, "Now you think I'm a complete dork." No, and he was really cool. Like we chatted for a while. Anyway, that was like highlight.
That is a fantastic story. Also, a wonderful list of animators. We're going to open up the floor to the chat for a couple of questions. We'll pick about three or four, so get your questions ready. And while we're waiting, Pilar, I want to know, how do you just keep that energy up all the time? You're just the most wonderfully animated person I've ever met in my life.
Oh man, well thank you. You know what it is? I like in the past I was basically an undisclosed people have said to me, undisclosed, no. They've said, Pilar, what's wrong with you? The
Mm.
world is falling down around our ears. Everything is like terrible right now. How could you still find the time to like laugh or smile? Don't you want to just sit there and like beat it? I was actually criticized. And I said, you know what? The world is a messed up place and things are messed up right now, but it's more fun to laugh.
Hmm.
And I'm not phony about it. I'm real. I'm real. I'll say to my students, I'm like, man, don't try it today. I haven't had coffee. I don't want to hear it. One time I walked into my classroom in City College, and I said, uh, like, I did not hear a peep out of any of you because I'm in the worst mood right now, like ever. And my students were like, okay, and then they were like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, I love you guys. I can't say thank you. So I don't know. I'm also just a bad act. I'm good at acting, I guess, because yeah, even if I'm tired, I'll just really.
Yeah, I definitely feel that vibe. We do have a question from chat. It's from Genesis. She wants to know, what are your favorite tools for animation for someone starting out right now?
Oh, if it's starting out, I mean, I'm always going to recommend Adobe Animate because I eat, sleep, breathe Adobe Animate. But I mean, the reason I like it is that you could get a tablet. You could either just get like a $70 Wacom tablet,
Hmm.
where it's like the size of a mouse pad and the pencil stylus, and you have to look at the screen, little hand-eye coordination going on, but you get used to it. Or you can get what I actually happen to have right here, the 13-inch
Ooh.
Wacom One. Now I got this as a temporary machine. It's sort of like it's the monitor,
Hmm.
and it's like it's like a Cintiq. It's the same company, but it's considered beginner grade, and it's like $300. But and everyone's like, Pilar, why don't you get the 13-inch Wacom? It's so much better. It's professional. It has 4K digital something something display. And I said, listen, I just want to be able to draw, and this works for me. You could also, a lot of my students swear by, like FlipperClip, for instance. If you have a tablet, there are countless. Like if you don't want to get you know, you have to get the subscription, the Adobe, you have to get the whole suite, and it's X number of dollars. I forgot, because I'm getting this, still getting the student rate, but yeah, just apps. I mean, heck, you could even download Stop Motion Studio on your phone
Hmm.
and add it on index cards, man. Just prop your phone. It's like
Classic.
so.
We Genesis actually mentioned something. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's a Nintendo animation game.
Is somebody told me about that? Is that on the Switch? Because I didn't know that it's a game where you create animation. That's cool.
I'm not. Yeah, Genesis. What is it exactly? Because I've never heard of it myself either. But that's pretty cool.
That sounds really cool. I mean, if you have like a Switch or like one of those Nintendo doohickeys, they probably have like apps.
Oh, she says it's called Flip Note Studio. It was on the Nintendo 3DS.
Oh, somebody was telling me about that. I don't know anything about the video game things. I mean, I'm still the most familiar thing I'm familiar with Pac-Man. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
that.
Pac-Man's good. I mean, everybody loves Pac-Man. Can't go wrong with that. Classic.
Actually, I take it back. I beat Sonic 2 once,
Ooh.
and I got the cheat codes and played Sonic 2 all the way through as Super Sonic. It's harder to do than you think, by the way.
Oh yeah, definitely. We have another question here from Dancer Art 123, and she wants to know, how has teaching influenced your animation visions and goals?
Oh wow. Well, just to start off, so when I started teaching, and I'll just give you a tiny little backstory if you don't mind. I was at the, City College in New York, hit me up, and very dear friend of mine, Nina Frankel, taught there, and she asked me a couple times, "Hey, do you want to come in and cover for me?" And I was like, "I've never taught college before. You want me to come in?" Up to this point, I'd been like a substitute teacher in the schools. I was a substitute teacher in like the public schools, working primarily with high school performing arts, which is also my alma mater. She said, "No, I just come in. It's like high school, except they don't throw paper airplanes at you." I said, "Oh, I love it." So I went in and I was like, you know, crap myself. I was so scared. No, I didn't really. That's an expression, guys. And the students were lovely. This was great. I covered for her a couple of times, and she had me come in as her sub, and I was like, "Wow, I'm getting some college experience." So I ended up being called in. Would you like to cover for her for one semester? And I said, yeah. And I called her and I said, Nina, like, are you okay? She said, yeah, it's just one semester. She was, going through some stuff, health stuff. And I said, well, I only want to hear that it's this one semester, but I would love to do it. And so I went in to meet with the director, and the director like pretty much like brought me on right away. And I texted her and I said, I think this is going to work out. So a few days later, I get an email and I found out that she had passed.
Mm.
Now, why am I telling you this? Because I was like, wait, what? This was supposed to be temporary. No, this was, wait, what? And I was like, Jiminy Cricket, like, yes, I actually do say Jiminy Cricket, but so with that kind of like cemented like my vision, where I was like, every single thing I do, I'm following it. I'm kind of, I have big shoes to fill. She was like very like respected there. I still am approached by students that had her, and I was like, wow. Anytime I have a chance to speak to someone that had Nina, I remember like I was like, wow. So my whole point is that like my goal is not only to just come in and teach animation. My goal is to inspire and make sure my students stay on the path of animation, right? So they come in and do animation. It's not like, okay, here, animate this bouncing ball. Now animate this thing. Now animate that thing. Okay, bye. Have a good life. I tell my students, I'm like, you probably won't be rid of me even after the class because I'm constantly trying to get you to submit to film festivals and have the same experience that I did when I was an undergrad. When I went to RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, my teachers were taking us to film festivals. They were bringing guest speakers. They brought us to Ottawa for a film festival. So I wanted my students to have the same experience. I haven't been able to bring them to Ottawa yet, but that's in the cards. But it's influenced my own work because like my work is basically I want to animate work that I want my students to be proud of, right? It's usually the other way around, right? Like students will say, oh, I want my teacher to be proud of me. It's like, no, I want my students to be proud of me now. Like, and teaching is what inspired me to go back to school.
Wow.
I ended up falling in love with it. Like teaching was sort of like supposed to be this temporary thing until I made that windfall gig.
Hmm.
Like I'm waiting to get my $500,000 book deal. But in the meantime, I'll do this teaching thing, and then I'll.
Hmm.
But then little by then after the first semester ended, I was like, I am in love with this, and I can't picture myself not doing this. I'm especially talking about the college level
Right.
because the students are so passionate, and I just ah they're just so amazing. Like, and it just influences me. So to answer your question, teaching has made me want to become a better animator and a better storyteller.
That's beautiful.
And that's why, and my students were having such a great time. I'm jealous of them. I'm like, well, you guys look like you're having fun. Now I want to go back to school. But I didn't go back to school I purposely didn't go back to school for animation. I went for visual narrative because I didn't want to just animate. I wanted to tell stories.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's interesting because the next question kind of bleeds into what you just said. This is from Ron Perty, and this will be the last question for tonight. What are the hardest things in creating a compelling story in animation?
Oh, wow. I mean, that can be I'm going to speak to creating a story in animation, but also creating a story in graphic novel, which is what I just did. And but it is relevant. I'm not being irrelevant to your question, because I just put out my graphic novel, snozzlewinks.com. Check us out. Oh wow, the hardest thing. Okay, and this is like one of the first things I learned at the School of Visual Arts. The hardest thing is to come up with a compelling character. And one of my biggest challenges, and that was like the one kind of thing that like my teachers got on me the most, was what does your character want and what's your character's flaw? What does your character want and what's your character's flaw? And is that a flaw that your character has to overcome? All right. And what's at stake?
Mm.
If there's nothing at stake, your character could just walk in and be like, well, I don't have to do it. Then why are you going to bother and walk out?
Right.
Movies that don't do well, I notice, are always movies where it's like, well, why did the character do that? I can't even think of an example, but it's always like, well, why? And so one of the biggest things I learned, and because I actually literally did go to school for visual narrative, like writing, one of the things I kept getting asked was, why? Okay, so my character walks into why? My character picks up a glass, why? Always why? It's like, why do you keep asking me why? People, there has to be a reason.
Yeah.
And even now, when I'm working on my own stories, that's like constantly in my head, and it was also in my head even before, but it's in my head more than ever now. But that is one of the hardest things because it's hard to come up with a character that that people will care about, that people will want to tune in week after week to watch, or go to the movie theaters and spend $25, or by the time you're done with like popcorn and of course, when things aren't the coronavirus, then back at theaters, but you get my drift.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered your question. But yeah, just the hardest thing is come up with a compelling character and just tell me what the heck they want. What do they want?
That's wonderful, wonderful advice. And Pilar, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been really fantastic chatting with you, and I'm sure everyone in chat, as I can see chat here, everyone's loving everything you've
Oh,
been saying. Where
well, thank
can,
you.
yes, of course, and where can folks find you across social media and on the internet in general?
Well, I'm always on the my biggest thing is I'm always on Instagram because Instagram I have like a book Insta and I have my studio Insta.
Hmm.
With my book Insta, I'll give you deets about my graphic novel. You can find out where we're going to be at and everything. So my studio Insta is Pilar Tunes, like at Pilar Tunes, PILARTOONS.
Hmm.
And my book Insta is at Snozzlewinks World. So it's
Snozzlewinks.
yeah. So it's at Snozzlewinks World. So it's just like Snozzlewinks World. And for the record, that 8-year-old girl that was watching the Smurfs went and created her own characters because that's what she wanted to do, and that was Snozzlewinks. And
That
now 30
is
later, I'm put out a graphic novel.
that is fantastic. I mean, that's probably honestly the best story you can ever tell. You know what I mean? Outside of animation, your story right there, watching the Smurfs, then years later, you have your own thing. You have Pilar Tunes, you have Snozzlewinks. That's fantastic. Pilar, I want to thank you again. Please have a wonderful night, and we'll definitely chat soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and let's do this again.
Of
Bye,
course.
everyone, for tuning in.
That's so important to have in an industry, right? Representation. And like you said, seeing somebody create something and feeling like you are a part of what they're creating, like seeing yourself within the game or movie or book or comic book or anything like that. And I think a lot of times